Okay, very good morning to all of you. Okay, we have had what we are doing is discussion of general studies papers that have been conducted for mains this year, where we have had GS paper 1 and essay paper discussion that is done. We will take up GS paper 3 discussion now. Okay. We'll do a trend analysis in terms of how have questions been appearing. We'll also try understand from the overall perspective of what has been the idea in which UPSC has been giving questions. This is important for us because as you do a prelims analysis of how do questions come, what are the topics on which they have been touching upon. Similarly, it's also important for us to understand how are questions appearing in mains, which are the topics that they are touching upon in mains. And when you see a larger trend analysis, since the time syllabus changed, from 2013 we'll see the idea of syllabus and how things have been changing. From that perspective, it will be important for all of you, right? You will get to understand how there has been a dynamicity that UPSC has maintained, and this dynamicity has continued over years. So there is no point of time that you can come to a clear conclusion that these are the topics that will come, these are topics which will not come, these are things that you cannot arrive at. UPSC has always maintained its specificity where it wants to keep the students guessing. It wants to ensure the students are on their footsteps to check that they have basic understanding of every topic in the syllabus that they have mentioned. Okay. So from that basic understanding, we'll try understand GS paper 3. As I said, we'll do a trend analysis of 2013 to 22 and we'll specifically take 22-23 to understand how questions have come. We'll do a basic understanding of each questions of this year's paper. We're not doing detailed answers of each paper as such, but still, how do you at least touch upon? End of the session, you should be in a position that even if I don't know things completely, I will be able to answer these questions with some basic knowledge at least. That's the idea that we'll touch upon. Okay? Yes? Perfect. I'm audible till the end. ಮುಂದೆ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡಿ right those who are online we are audible people online we are audible. Perfect. Great. Okay, so let's start from the ideas as such. As I said, this is GS paper 3. Now, from 2013 till now, if we do a larger understanding of how GS paper 3 has performed after the syllabus changed, it has been one paper which has been largely on the tougher side, right? We say moderate to difficult because every year there will be at least one or two questions which will be totally out of reach. Where did this question appear from is something that becomes difficult for us to understand. That's been the nature. However, one good news this year has been that almost all questions have been on the attemptable range that you can write something for sure. There is one or two questions which you still will feel that this is something I may not have prepared, but largely you will get a clarity in terms of the idea. Okay, so that's something that you can see through. So we'll do that analysis as such. Okay, right. We all know GS paper 3 as part of the syllabus has three parts. One is economics, which includes development economics and agriculture. The second is science and technology, environment and disaster management clubbed together. And the third part is security. So three parts to the syllabus of GS paper 3. Economics, which has developmental economics and agriculture. Science and technology, environment and disaster management club. And the third part is security. We see an equal division of questions when it comes to all these three papers and all the three ideas as such. Right, so basic understanding of the syllabus all of us know, right? Divisions of the syllabus we know, right? For those from batch 3 also, right? Don't worry about the details as such, you have just entered, so you will get a clarity as in how classes will go on. As of now, we have been doing geography, right? After that, we start polity and get into economics, so you will also get a clarity, right? So don't worry about where are these things. These are purely from the syllabus, and I'm giving you a syllabus breakup also and trend analysis, so there is much detailing so that you will not also feel it. Okay, so from all that perspective. So these are the topics that we have seen: economics, agriculture, science and technology, environment, disaster management, and security. This is how we divide. And from that perspective, if we do a trend analysis from 2013 to 2023, 2013 is when the syllabus changed, right? Until 2012, we had only 2 GS papers, each 200 marks worth, and we had 2 optionals which had 2 papers each. So 2013 onwards is when we now have 4 GS papers along with 1 essay exclusively. So entirely common papers have 1250 marks. So specific to GS paper 3, if we do a trend analysis from 2013 to 2023, this is the idea. So first we will take from 2013 to 2019 each section wise understanding, 2013 to 2019, and then we will go on to last 3-4 years as such. So this is how we are looking at. Look at this. From the economics part, the initial topics of inclusive growth, resource mobilization, those aspects lumped into growth, budget, liberalization, infrastructure, investment. If you are looking at from these particular topics, look at this. Now this has been one topic which has been continuously giving questions, right? So aspects related to growth, modernization, inclusive growth in terms of resource mobilization, there have been questions continuously from the first year onwards, and we have seen a high of 37.5 marks coming in that also. So continuously every year we have seen questions in that line. But when you take budget, right, those questions have varied. There has been a year where there is no question. This year also, there is no direct question on budget, but 2023 budget, what all has been there as announcements or topics of the budget related to that, there has been questions. So if I put this column for 2023, I will still put 0 because there is no direct question on the budget as such, but indirectly there have been questions relating to. Okay, so budget also has been considerably giving questions in terms of asking topics as such. That is also an area where there are questions as high as 30 marks, and then questions are still going on. If you take the questions from liberalization topic, so impact of liberalization, challenges of liberalization, privatization, globalization, changes in industrial policy, that particular topic, there again we have seen questions continuously, but there have been 2 years where we don't see a direct question related to that. But they have also been giving questions. So there are no topic of economics specifically where you don't see questions, continuously there has been questions. So if there is one topic where every year you have seen questions, this is the year. Okay, infrastructure and investment. Now this includes everything in terms of energy, right, roadways, railways, investment models, all those topics of infrastructure investment you have seen questions, and as high as 37.5 also, and questions have gone. There has been 1 year in 2019 where there are no questions directly related to that. This has been the trend specific to the economics part of it when you see these 4 topics. Okay. So what is the takeaway? Growth related topics that we see, which is related to unemployment, poverty, right, inclusive growth, these developmental economics topics is somewhere you always have had questions. Okay, so that's something you can't neglect. Now if there is question related to GDP, calculation of GDP methodology, right, taxation, all that comes in that idea, but specifics to tax also we can take in here. Right, like last year you had a question on GDP calculation, GS3 related questions that we have had, but those questions are also taken here. So this is one area you can't neglect at all, specific to mains. They have given you questions in terms of prelims also, because the conceptual economics part that we talk of from the idea of growth in terms of GDP calculations, in inclusive growth in terms of planning, all related to planning, that also comes in here, right? Then we talk of fiscal policy, monetary policy, inflation, all that comes in here, right? So that part also comes in here. That is why this has been a constant question giving part. Okay, so that's something that you will have to understand. Now let's get into the second idea, which is agriculture part. Now specific to prelims, when you see, agriculture gets divided into geography, into environment, and also agriculture, your economics. Now geography part of agriculture is in terms largely of mapping and the economic geography part. That's the economic geography that comes in paper of GS paper 3. So we will not get into geography part of agriculture. We will talk of which soil and others and perspective, but specific here is in terms of these topics, right? Land reforms, cropping, which is cropping pattern, irrigation included, subsidies, direct and indirect subsidies and PDS, e-technology in the aid of agriculture, which also includes livestock, and food processing. Last year we had one exclusive question, direct question on food processing. These are topics related to agriculture. There again, when you see, here the questions have been very varied. You see a lot of zeros in between, which means questions are coming in, but not as much as the initial topic was. If you look at land reform, there's been no questions at all, largely only 2 times. This topic has made a comeback this year. We see a question directly on land reforms this year as such. Okay, so land reforms, generally when you see this graph and you say, okay, questions are not coming, so I can neglect. As soon as you feel that you see a question that has come this year, and that question is not a direct question also, the question is related to a little historical understanding of land ceiling, importance of land ceiling, our basis mele there is a question this year. Okay, so that's the perspective also you understand. Now cropping. Now cropping is largely a geography based question, but then part of your GS paper 3, that also understanding. Initial 3 years you did not have question, then continuously you have had question. This year we don't have a question on cropping directly, but important. Okay, so that's the idea you see, and these questions have been on large marks generally. So that's the idea which feels, or which is the perspective that you cannot neglect this topic. It's an important idea. Where do we study this? You study this as part of your geography, where you study, we will have exclusive class on agriculture also, given the questions on agriculture in prelims also is increasing. So after economics, we'll have one specific class specific to agriculture, which is related to prelims and mains. There also you will have questions related to that. Okay, so this has been an important topic, giving more questions, both in prelims and mains. Agriculture related questions, both in prelims and mains, are increasing. MSP PDS, this is direct indirect subsidies. So this year also we have a question, direct indirect subsidies, basic understanding of subsidies, right, and then subsidies related to India, direct and indirect subsidies, issues of subsidies related to WTO, right, the different boxes, and then how India has been catering to subsidies with respect to WTO issues also. That also has been a question. So there you see there's been a mix and match, but questions have been coming in. E-technology in the aid of farmers. Now, technology and technology specific aid of farmers has been a very relevant topic from the perspective of marketing, productivity, to the perspective of post-harvest management. All aspects technology comes into consideration. So, if you take a basic idea of soil health card, precision farming, right, to the idea of inputs, then finally marketing, so that it go to every aspect comes in here. Technology missions also comes in here. So from that line also. However, questions have been less, but it is picking up, given that there is more emphasis from the government side in terms of technology missions that we are coming in terms of. So that's the line that you will have to see through from e-technology in the aid of farmers. Food processing, exclusive topic of food processing, upstream requirements, downstream requirements, scope of food processing, this is how it is mentioned in the syllabus. So that's been an area where, been favorite for UPSC, you see continuous questions that have appeared. So one area which you cannot neglect, understanding food processing and different aspects related to food processing is important. This is where questions are pitching in, right? So you will have to understand from schemes and government program perspective also. So you have something called mega food parks and related to your setting up food parks and across India. Apart from that, basics of food processing, why food processing? That's why the question, the topic itself says scope of food processing. For a country like India, which is largely dependent on agriculture, we have a large disguised unemployment in agriculture, but the GDP that you are deriving out of agriculture is very less. One scope area, one area where you have a large scope is food processing. So from that line, this topic becomes important, right? So because it can help in diversification, it can create more jobs, especially India being both a tropical and subtropical country. You have temperate fruits, you have tropical fruits, right? Go out in regions of Punjab and regions, you have large food parks set up. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari as such, or the westernmost part in Gujarat to Assam regions, you will have varied amount of agriculture that comes in, agriculture output that comes in. Each one of them have a high scope of food processing. That's the reason why this topic has a high value, and you see questions continuously appearing. Okay, so if you observe the idea that has been coming in, you see the perspectives from both. So take in economics or take in the perspective that you are arriving at, both topics have questions coming in. So this is economics, and this specifics comes in terms of agriculture. Both have questions that have been coming in terms, and these questions are specific. Okay, so topic specific questions are coming. Now let's to the second section. The second section of GS paper 3 is the area where you are talking of science and technology, environment and disaster management. We will divide that from the perspective where you are taking in environment, we include disaster management. Science and technology, there are multiple topics, but we divide one specific to science and technology, one there is indigenization, Indian development in science and technology, there are topics. So we divide that into two parts. There you observe questions. Science has been giving continuous questions as such. So starting from as high as 40 marks, you have been seeing questions coming. Okay, so this is also given you a lot of questions. Technology specific to Indian orientation, you see there is continuous marks coming in. Why? Right, space technology, defense technology, nuclear technology, right, IT, biotechnology, these are all aspects where there has been continuous innovations and developments in India. Now these are reported, continuous developments have come out in newspapers, so as part of your current affairs development, also basic knowledge related to that you have question, right. No, we did not expect a question on Chandrayaan given that the mission happened much closer to the mains and we were not expecting that. But still, a lot of that was in news from last few years, and especially in the last 6 months, Chandrayaan was much in news. So from that perspective, we have seen a question that's come. Chandrayaan specific question has come this time and related to the launch vehicle, right, the equipment that were involved in. So in that sense, these are questions related to that understanding. Okay, environment. So related to environment as such, you see there is no miss at all, and that too questions of very high numbers because topics are large. From the idea of environment, biodiversity, pollution, related to all aspects. Though the mention in the syllabus is just 2-3 words, there is environment impact assessment, biodiversity that's just mentioned, and pollution related aspects. Questions have been very high. Continuously questions have been appearing. So this is again one topic both for prelims and mains, like there is agriculture, right, or the growth aspects. Similarly here environment, these are topics both for prelims and mains extremely important, right. These are topics that you can't miss. Conceptual and also development. When you're coming into mains, it's more into developmental aspects of environment, right, climate change, recent developments related to that, India's development related to that, the idea of electric vehicles that comes into consideration, the idea of wetlands that comes into consideration. So if you say here, this time's budget had a lot of such aspects. We had Govardhan, we had Amrit Dharohar, we had the idea of mangroves, each one had a specific scheme. Now that is budget. But in the budget we are talking of environment, right? But in the budget part it has not come, related questions have come in this line. So that's where you have to be careful, right? So it's very important to constantly note the budget and economic survey because they can give you pointers or indicators where questions can come. That's how the idea is. So this is one area which has given you a lot of questions, which is science, environment and disaster management. Continuously you have seen questions. Similarly disaster management. Right. So look at disaster management again. They have given you questions continuously without any break. Continuous questions. Right. Now disaster management does not only include cyclones and landslides, it can also include all aspects that have been recently appearing. Like dams destruction has come. Now that was one unexpected area, but given the lot of development that are happening around in Himachal, Uttarakhand region from last 3 years continuously, they have touched upon that question. Right. So that was one unexpected area as such when you're talking of dams and dams overflow. Oil spill has come as a question as part of environment, but that's not direct, that's a little old as a topic, but still has come, right? How have they linked those questions to India is something that you have to observe. Now, what will be the outcome of today's analysis is, once you go back after listening to these classes, your study from now onwards in terms of how do you approach current affairs, how do you see topics should change. There should be an improvement such that every time you see a current affair, every time you see a news, you should be able to, okay, this can become a potential question. So I will observe this differently. I will see this differently. That's how you should be observed. Especially the Sunday's newspaper, the way they are talking on terms of science and the FAQ part that comes in, these are things that can be potential questions, right? Generally, Sunday's newspaper is neglected, but trust me, the Hindu on Sunday is giving you immense information which you can definitely save. profiles part, FAQ sections, and the science sections, right? If you are able to pick and choose and read. So this again has been one area which has given you. So like economics, the second section here has given you a lot of questions as such. The last section, security, right? So look at the security section. We are again divided into development versus extremism, which includes the idea. Naxalism is included here, related aspects. Border management and agencies related to border management. Cyber security, money laundering and aspects related to that. Organized crime, drug trafficking and others related. So these are the 5 topics that we have come into consideration. So on that line when you see questions, right? But see here, questions have largely been focused in this region because that's where the continuous effort has been. Here also questions have been high, again because it's idea about Naxalism, development related aspects. Cyber security has also been a favorite area, but this has been one area in terms which has had less questions. But here questions have been seeing an uptrend in the last 3 to 4 years. Okay, so that's how we have to observe here. These are the 3 topics that have been favorite areas because that's where the larger developments also are. From that perspective, you observe this, right? Government policies, border related policies, India's border management, security agencies, all that. This time also we have a question here in terms of agencies, right? Here we have a question in terms of how there has been this surrender policy that's come into consideration. What has been the government effort in terms of the surrender policy? That also has been seen here. So this is the line that you have to observe specific. Okay? Clear? So this is briefly the 3 sections that we have analyzed specifically from 2013 to 2019. Okay? Now we will shift to last 3 to 4 years so you understand what has been the trend. Look at this. This is 20, 21, 22 and the present year 23. I have given the split also for you to understand how many 10 mark questions, how many 15 mark questions that comes in. Okay? So if you observe this, the same brackets that we have taken into consideration, economy part, again you see the uptrend here. So this being the topic that previous time also we saw, continuous questions have come and that trend has continued. And even this year, 40 marks when you pitch that. Okay? So this is a section that's a big plus when you're looking at conceptual part of economics and the developmental part of economics. Alright? So this part has given you 40 marks this time also and that questions have come. Budget, this time no direct question as such. Liberalization, last 4 years specific, we don't see a question as such in terms of impact, right? But infrastructure investment models have continuously given question. This time we see one question, but that too I could have put that question here, but I've taken that question here in terms of digitalization. There's a question. So digital infrastructure related, I have taken that question as part of the infrastructure related. Okay, so that's how the questions have been coming in. So economics part as such, you see the trend continues, but budget and liberalization downtrend, but growth and perspectives of infrastructure, there has been an uptrend that has continued. Okay. Again, agriculture, when we see the same topics as such, right, land reform related, one question after a long time, questions have been in and out. Cropping pattern has seen, so we see one question related to that, 15 marks. PDS related question, right, given the direct indirect subsidies that have come into consideration, and then e-technology in the aid of farmers, right, there again there has been one 10 mark question. So something where last 3 years you did not see a question, you see a question at once. Okay. Food processing question, this time we don't have because there have been continuous questions. So direct question on food processing has not come. Last year we had a direct question on food processing of what is food processing, the scope and improvement. This time we don't see a question. Right. Then specific to science and environment section. Science section you see 35, 30, 25. This time also you have 20 marks direct. So science section has continuously given marks. Indian science this time has given 30 marks because of Chandrayaan and related development of artificial intelligence also. Again, where question from artificial intelligence, how do we expect? This time's budget also spoke of artificial intelligence, make AI for India, make AI in India, this idea. So on that line also we have seen the question from technology perspective, we have seen the question from, right. So Indian science this time has given 30 marks, which is one Chandrayaan related and the direct question specific. Environment and disaster, right, you see this 50, 35, 40, and this time you still have 25 marks coming in. So environment question related to pollution, right? Oil spill and oil pollution related question has come. But disaster management this time again has given 25 marks. So there also there has been a continuous uptrend. So these are two areas again, environment and disaster management, you don't see a slip at all in the question. They have to give anoriti kodtane idare. Right? So illi miss adru kuda, these are two areas they have been continuously given, which is environment and disaster management. Okay? So continuous questions. Right? Last part, security. Right? Last 3 years. Development and extremism related, we have 10 marks, one question. Border and agencies related, we have 15 marks, one question. Cyber security, we don't see a question this time. But organized crime related, we see 25 marks question coming into picture. So that's an area which has provided questions as such. So if you total this up, this comes up to 250, right? So that's been the wide variation as such. So economics has given you questions directly. Otherwise, there's been a split in terms of agriculture related questions. Again, science has given you, disaster management has given you questions, and then you see the questions on security perspective, right? So agriculture has split up in terms, otherwise trend has been normal. So what is the final say or specific understanding of this year's paper? Paper has been largely easy compared to the last 3-4 years, largely easy. Almost all questions have been in the attemptable range, that with basic preparation, right, you could have written something, definitely something. So 3 to 4 marks out of 10, 5 to 6 marks out of 15 is assured if you are keeping your time limit in consideration and if you are attempting with basic knowledge. This is assured, right? Now, how do I make that? So last time, the average marks in GS paper 3 was very less. Right, every year it so happens that one paper will get hit. Right, so last time GS paper 3, the average slipped down to 70, 75 and maximum around was 90. Somebody above 90 was very, very less. But this time we can see an uptrend in that paper if people have performed effectively. So we can see marks averaging around 85, 90 can go up to 100, 105 also. Right, that's the ideation that we come into. Okay. Right, any questions till now? Anything that you want to ask? Any doubt, any clarification? Anybody, people online also? Right, so this is just a trend analysis for you to get an idea. You have seen which areas have seen questions continuously, which are the areas that you have to focus. That's also something that you have understood. Okay, let's go ahead. So scoring pattern in terms of GS paper 3, right? So this is something I have told you. Moderate to low has been the scoring pattern because their questions have been on the tougher side. Especially 2013 to 2019, we have seen the average around 85 to 95, but last 3 years we have seen very low scores. Especially last year, the score was around 70 to 90, right? So as low as 70, 65, also people touched. GS paper 3 was bad hit. Okay, so that was last scoring pattern specific to GS paper 3. Question paper. Now, just last year and this year question paper, I'll just touch upon the topics so that you understand on the bouncers pattern. Now, when I say this is something that you'll have to understand from perspective of GS paper 3 of 2022, right? So just topics touch mana, 2020, last year. PPP in railways, right? Why? Because India was allowing more private sector investment in railway station development, inclusive growth market economy, challenges in PDS, attemptable. Food processing industry, direct question, attemptable. Challenges leading to increased life expectancy. Now this is health, but science and technology perspective related to health, still attemptable. Cellulose decomposition. Now this was a major bouncer last time. So this was a question which, right, largely people would have left last time, right? Why? No direct preparation and generally a topic which we tend to neglect. Okay, science related question, environment related science question, so this would have been. Photochemical smog, Gothenburg protocol, environment pollution related question, cloudburst, disaster management, again continuously in news, types of organized crime, direct, science and technology, maritime security challenges, direct. 15 marks, labor productivity. Now labor force survey was in news in terms of data coming out, that was renewable energy, again electric vehicles and India's push towards renewable energy. Marketing of agriculture products, this was a direct 15 marks question. Integrated farming systems, again question which was an attemptable range. James Webb telescope. Now this was a little out of box because no direct preparation was there. So this also would have been a question in terms where, right, the scoring would have gone down. Vaccine development, the question was expected, but the way the question has come in part of science was not expected. So in that sense, here also people would have struggled a little. Global warming and climate change, direct question, but then the way the question was asked. Coastal erosion, now this is linked to disaster management perspective and related. Only 2 questions of 15 marks here, cyber security and Naxalism, direct questions are there. So if you see around, there are 3 or 4 topics which were not directly in the attemptable range, right? This was last year. When we compare that to this year as such specific, see this. So about 2023 paper is easy to moderate because topics have been very much in the expected lines. Good news, there have been no specific questions which are totally out of box, right? I have not heard about this, I don't know. That kind of questions have not come, right? Like when we wrote the first mains in 2013, there was a question on what is arboriculture, right? So arboriculture is agori for us. So where is arboriculture? What is the idea? We don't know. We have heard of all types of culture from agriculture, horticulture and others, but arboriculture is something we said, okay, good to leave and come, right? Because ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಬರ್ದು 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೂ ನೀವು ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರೋ ನೀವು ಏನು ಬರ್ದು ಬ್ಲಫ್, waste of time. Instead, you can spend the time effectively on other questions. So, the approach that we tend to give to people who write mains is, you should write almost every question, don't leave any. You will leave maximum of one question which you feel is totally out of your range. Which means you don't know anything. ಆ ರೀತಿ ಒಂದು question ಬಿಡ್ಬೋದು. That's the only thing that we said. So when that comes in picture, if you are able to leave that one question, then that time you should utilize. Leaving anything more than one, right, is entering into a danger zone or a zone where you will start losing marks. Because 10 marks or worst case 15 marks when you leave one question is still fine. But anything more than that, you are attempting only for 220, 230, 200 means you are already starting on a backtrack, right? Because please remember, the idea is out of 250, we are looking at an average of 100. Yes, average of 100. Anything more than 100 is very good. But if you are starting only at 200, then you are not looking at 100, you are looking at 75, 80. Right? That's the thing that you have to look at. So, the primary mantra for any GS paper is complete the paper. Right? So yes, as of now, when all of you are getting into answer writing practice and starting to write answers, you are taking too much time, you are not able to write good answers, you are still taking half an hour, 45 minutes per question, that's fine to start with because your answer writing skill has to get fine tuned. But then, as and how we get closer, right, to November, December, you should also look at time. That's why continuously attempt the tests that we give in the class. When we give you tests, in the test stick to time limits. 10 marks, 7.5 minutes. Right, 15 marks, 9 minutes. When you stick to that, whatever you are there, leave that at that point, go to the next question. So you will then develop a general knack of how much should I write, because you will stop writing wasteful content. There is difference between literature and content. What will give you marks is content. Generally, what we tend to write is literature. How do we differentiate this? Right, the idea of bringing in very good English to write, to make it seem good is what we tend to do to fill the paper rather than writing what the question is asking. Question has a specific demand, you should directly hit the demand, right? There is no idea of completing or filling up those 2 pages or 3 pages they have given, right? That's not a necessity at all. Rather, the necessity is to address the demand of the question. That's where you have to focus. Clear? Yes? So what's been the topic this time? Right, just a quick run through. We have questions on faster economic growth, manufacturing sector related, digitalization of the economy, technology in agriculture, land reforms and land ceiling policy. Artificial intelligence, microorganisms related to fuel shortage, this is in terms of science, right? Causes of dam failures, disaster management, oil pollution again in terms of pollution. Conflict resolution, terrorism affected areas in terms of the surrender policy, security, measures to tackle unmanned aerial vehicles. So now this is technology, but they have asked the question as part of your security. How, right, for the enemies or the terrorists or people who are causing security threats, they are getting hand of this technology, which means they are using drones for different purpose which can have security threats. So how are we countering that? 10 marks questions. So 15 marks question, again starting with unemployment, and they say structural unemployment, methods how you calculate, what are the measures to improve. Care economy monetization. So every time we do the first topic, we talk of care economy. One of the major problem in calculating India's GDP is that there are non-monetized transactions, and such non-monetized transactions are care economy. Yes. So care economy does not come into calculation, which actually is a problem. Correct. So this time you have a direct question on care economy related. Care economy and monetized economy, they've asked you to compare. How can you make this care economy better? This is also a question that they've touched upon. Cropping pattern question has made a comeback in terms. Agricultural subsidies related to WTO issues. Electric vehicles question has come given the larger push that's on electric vehicles. India's the third moon mission Chandrayaan 3 comes back in terms of specific components related. So this is a direct question. This is where even though I know things, probably when one is writing, exact names of every of those components would have been missed out. That's the only thing. Otherwise this again attemptable. National Wetlands Conservation Program. Right. This time's budget had the program called Amrit Dharohar, and Amrit Dharohar gave specific importance to budgets your wetlands. Wetlands were called the lungs of the ecosystem, right? So lungs or kidneys of the ecosystem by which they are able to purify things. That's the idea of wetlands. So there's a question on wetlands also directly. Global sea level rise and impact. Now this as a topic is GS paper 1, right? Sea level rise and impact. But where have they asked? They have asked in GS paper 3 as part of your disaster management linked to environment. So sea level rise and the impact, no idea, na? They have asked in GS paper 3. So that's the interrelation. So where is the topic specifically mentioned? GS paper 1 it is mentioned, flora, fauna, right, melting sea caps, and then the impact of sea level rise. That also question has come. But this come as part of environment ecology. Internal security challenges in terms of intelligence agencies. What are the internal security challenges and role of intelligence agencies? Terror funding sources. There was this conference that happened, Pakistan being removed out of grey list, right? FATF conference that happened. Financial Action Task Force. So Financial Action Task Force, FATF idea that came into picture, that related, look at the question that has come, terror funding sources in India and related to the no money for terror conference that happened. So this was a current affair. Pakistan removed out of FATF was a current affair. Question appears and question is not direct to that but to the concept of terror finance. That's the idea that we see. Okay. So this is the 20 topics that have come as questions. So what is the output that you have to derive is current affairs is something you have to continuously observe. But while linking those current affairs back to the syllabus, you will have to have an idea of those current affairs from the syllabus point of view also. Develop that idea, get the basic clarity clear. Okay? So that's how you have to work upon. Are we clear? Yes? All of us? Right? So let's now go question by question, first question onwards, so that we generate a structure, right? We are not discussing the answer in detail, we'll at least generate a structure. When I see a question, how should I look at the question and develop an impact towards it? That's the basic idea that you have to see, right? What is the demand of the question? What are the parts and subparts of the question? If you are able to identify that, then if you are able to specifically address that, then you get your marks, okay? Right, we'll also say what is the general mistakes that people tend to do and what are the changes one has to work upon. Clear? Yes? All of us? Okay? Right. So let's go to the first question. The first question talks about faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly of MSMEs. Comment on present policies of government in this regard. Now remember, this is a 10 marks question. The first 10 questions are 10 marks questions. You have a statement to start with. The statement says, faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly MSMEs. This is just a statement, right? Question is asking you, comment on the present policies of government in this regard. Can you directly jump to the present policies related to manufacturing sector? You can't. You will have to just introduce what is the statement. Introduce a statement. What is the mistake we tend to do? We tend to write 8 marks related content on this statement and just about 1 or 2 marks related to this statement, right? Rather, it should be about 3 to 4 marks maximum or 2 to 3 marks related to this statement, and then the remaining part, because question is this. This is just a statement. Question is asking you comment on the present policies of government in this regard. Present policies of government. Regard to what? Manufacturing sector contribution and especially MSMEs. Remember, whenever we do the first topic and sectoral distribution, we talk of how India's growth is a lopsided growth. We are a service sector based economy. Since we are a service sector based economy, larger contribution to growth or GDP in India comes from service sector, right? And that is not creating enough jobs. That's why our growth is a jobless growth. And when we ask the question, what is the solution for this, or what is the reason for this? The reason is we have jumped the second sector. From primary, went into secondary, came back and directly gone into. So our secondary sector is weakly developed, which is our manufacturing sector. The weak development of the manufacturing sector is a primary reason why India's growth is still lower compared to the larger potential. So how are you justifying that aspect? Specifically MSMEs andaga, there again please understand, manufacturing sector for a country like India, MSMEs have a huge potential. Why? Remote, regional development, employment generation that can result in. You can't set up large industries in every part of India, but you can set up MSMEs in every part of India. More MSMEs in every part of India, more job creation. That's the benefit that MSMEs give. So from that line, you have to see the development aspect that comes in. Clear? Yes? So initial introduction on importance of manufacturing sector for India's economy, then benefit or importance of MSME specifically in manufacturing sector, directly go into present policies of the government in this regard, specifically to manufacturing sector, right? Starting from Make in India policy, New Industrial Resolution, Make in India policy, Mudra, right? Production linked incentive schemes, all these are related to manufacturing sector that comes in. So if you are able to identify 3 or 4, right, government schemes that have been come in last 2 to 3 years, specifically targeting the manufacturing sector and emphasizing on MSMEs, right, that would have been. Right, all of us should know Mudra, all of us should know SIDBI, right? So SIDBI, Mudra related, production link incentive scheme, PLIs have been in news continuously. So PLIs if you are able to link in, Make in India if you are able to touch, all of them have been working, right? So SEZ policy, right? The idea of giving in incentives to the areas of manufacturing development, all this is something that you have to bring in. Again, 10 marks, so limit the content, just mention the policies, comment on the present policies. So they are not asking you to analyze. Policy, name, what is the impact? Policy name, what are they trying to do? This is the idea. So you have to mention specific policy name, that's what give you marks. Clear? Yes? Mistakes that we tend to do, as I said, lopsided. First part nanu gottu anno basis mele I will write too much of content on the first part and write very less content on the second part. That will not give you marks. Question is the second part. That will give you marks. That doesn't mean you shouldn't write anything. You should introduce based on this, answer here more. That's the thing that you have to focus upon. Clear? All of us? Yes? I know you have come early in the morning. This is the second continuous class. So naturally energy is down. And this is theory again, so sitting and listening, so naturally you go out to your own dreamlands, right? So give yourself nice slaps and then get back, because this session can definitely be a lot more useful to all of you, right? ಯಾರು ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಟಲ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಟಲ್, ನಿಮ್ಮ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಟಲ್ ನೀರು ಕುಡೀರಿ, ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರೋರು ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿರೋ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಟಲ್ ನೀರು ಕುಡೀರಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಅವೇಕ್ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್, ಗೆಟ್ ಅಪ್, ಓಕೆ? Right, and people online I'm not able to see, right? Hope you are also there. Yes, okay, let's continue, right? You have GS2 also to pick up, so let's not waste much time. Question number 2, look at this now. The question is, directly starting, what is the status of digitalization in Indian economy? Digitalization in Indian economy, first part. Examining the problems faced in this regard, second part. Suggest improvement. So question has 3 parts. 10 marks, question has 3 parts. Status of digitalization in Indian economy. Examine the problems, suggest improvements. 3 parts of the question, right? So you can simply say 3 and with your introduction conclusion, done. Status of digitalization, right? So why did we go for demonetization? For a different reason, but then onwards what pushed it? Right, digital development, and Niti Aayog has been specifically working on digitalization as such. So from that beginning, if you start on 2011 to 2019, India saw a larger push toward digitalization, especially in terms of banking, in terms of the internet usage, and the idea of financial inclusion that comes into consideration. So every aspect of the economy, right, be it agriculture, be it the formal sector, be it banking sector, every aspect of economy has seen digitalization. People's digital awareness also in terms of what? Access to digital infrastructure has increased. Why? Mobile phone spread has happened. The national broadband policy, national telecom policy have always pushed in for using the idea of mobile phone as an instrument of social transformation. Right? So these aspects you initially touch upon. So with that you have to give specific. So the policy's name that we gave into consideration also JAM Trinity, direct benefit transfer, linking your bank accounts to your mobile number, and on that basis idea of UPI coming into consideration, right? The idea of transfers in terms of increasing UPI transactions that has happened. This is something that you have to talk of status of digitalization. So there has been a continuous uptrend. That's the status, right? You can't stop there. You will also have to mention some concerns related, problems faced, right? So problems faced, infrastructure related, rural urban divide related, right? Servicing, cost, also digital literacy. Not every Indian is digitally literate, right? If your own parents face some problem in some payments as such, they will stop using it forever. Why? They will directly prefer more using the cash economy as such because it's something that they are transparent to. Especially with problems of cyber security, problems of cyber interventions where people are losing money for their online transfers, that has created. So problems andaga starting from infrastructure issues, rural urban divide, digital literacy issues, also cyber security and privacy issues you have to identify. Now when you have identified problems, you have to come up with improvements. How do you suggest? So how do you bridge rural urban divide? How do you bring in more cyber security? How do you ensure there is more digital literacy? These aspects you have to work upon. Right, user-friendly aspects that come into consideration. So this is the question as such. 10 marks, you have 3 parts and it's very direct. One part points, second part points, third part points, direct. Right? Ee riti questions alli marks sigodu ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ easy because you are able to part by part address it directly. Okay? Clear? Yes. Stop me at any point of time. If there is any question, immediately ask. Right? Question number 3. Now this is the e-technology. How does e-technology help farmers? But they have clear. Farmers in what? Production and marketing of agricultural produce. Explain. Simple question. Right? E-technology helping farmers for 2 parts. Production and marketing of agricultural produce. Explain this side. So, you directly talk about what is the importance of e-technology in agriculture. Introduce the idea. Now, first part, e-technology in production of agricultural produce, right? From the idea of soil health card, precision farming, agricultural inputs, all these aspects of how technology has helped, right? Production aspects. Now, second aspect in terms of marketing, right? So, marketing only from the idea of ENAM to the idea of finding out markets in and outside India also, and in terms of better price visibility, price predictability that comes into consideration, use of artificial intelligence in these days specific to the trends these are, that idea you have to come. So there again you should use government programs that have come into consideration, there soil health card, precision farming, and here the idea of ENAM, and also government national agriculture extension program scheme where they are ensuring marketing produce. Warehouse limits that has come into consideration, price prediction that has come. So 2 direct parts, e-technology, 1 for production, 2 for marketing. Explain that idea with examples or government schemes. So I've been repeating, government schemes are important, examples are important. That will give more substantiation to the answer, more validation to the answer. Clear? So general content barದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ common content ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Specific content will give you marks. That's the difference of making your 3 out of 10 to 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10 to 6 out of 10. And imagine 1 to 2 marks question, marks improvement in every question. We are approximately looking at 15 to 20 marks improvement. Per paper 15 to 20 marks and then you approximately 4 papers ನೋಡಿದಾಗ it is 50 to 60 marks. And 50 to 60 marks jump is direct into the list. If you are out of the list, if you are inside the list, you are in the top 100. That's the jump that 50 to 60 marks give. That's what you have to work upon. Right? When you're beginning to write answers, your first attempt should be to consolidate the content and to write. After you are able to fine tune your writing, the next attempt should be how do I make my answers good answers? Right? Never push yourself to write excellent answers. It's not possible. Why? Because you have to write 20 questions and to write excellent answers in all 20 questions is practically not possible. But I should be able to ensure 4 out of 10 and 6 out of 15. So 4 out of 10, 6 out of 15 and 100 is ensured. Then what are the additionals I make? So if I'm able to touch 120, 110, this is the idea that you have to push through. Possible? Definitely possible. Okay? So this is question number 3. Question number 4. Objectives and measures of land reforms. Now this is a traditional question. No the current affairs related, nothing directly come. But it's a traditional question, a topic which had not appeared from past few years has now come back. Objectives and measures of land reforms in India. So land reforms, what are the objectives of land reforms? What are the measures of land reforms? From independence till now, if you look at what has been the objectives of land reforms. Right, there was huge land holding, zamindari system, land revenue system of British had disturbed the entire agriculture scenario, that had brought down productivity, that required land reforms. So objectives of land reforms 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of the historical backups and post-independence issues that we came into consideration. Then further, what are the measures that we have initiated? Right, measures from land ceiling to Zamindari Abolition Act, Benami property transactions, all those measures you have to link. Should I explain 10 marks? Not necessary, but at least, right, state the objectives, mention, done, right, state the objectives, state the measures, land reforms in India. Now second, discuss how land ceiling policy on land holding can be considered an effective reform under economic criteria. Right? The same question I can also ask you as part of your social criteria. History perspective. Vinoba Bhave question had come in terms of Bodan, Gramdan, that question had come. History. This is from economic criteria. So land ceiling policy on land holding. What was the problem after independence? There was large zamindari system. There were landless people also. So large number of agricultural tenure farmers who did not have land of their own. And large zamindars, these were absentee landlords. What was the problem? The landlords who were absentees, who were living in urban areas, were coming only to collect their land tenure. They were not investing on land. The people who were tilling the land, who are not owners of the land, they were not investing on the land. So productivity was very low. Right? There was no investment on land happening. That's the reason why food security was also a major problem. So keeping this in mind, when you brought land ceiling, right? ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಟು ದಿ ಟಿಲ್ಲರ್, ಉಳುವವನಿಗೆ ಭೂಮಿ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಟು ದಿ ಟಿಲ್ಲರ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ತಂದು ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಸೀಲಿಂಗ್ ತಂದಾಗ ಯು ಆರ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಕುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ಡ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ, ದಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಬ್ರಾಟ್ ಇನ್ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಇಕ್ವಿಟಿ, right, in terms of land distribution. That was also a benefit. So I should talk it from the terms of economic equity, agricultural benefit, land productivity increase. That's the line that I have to address. Again 10 marks. So you have 2 parts in the first question itself, third part here. Balance your answer. First part 5 marks, second part 5 marks. That's how you have to look at it. Okay. So please understand, question nodida tashna hege I divide this into parts. That's something they have to understand. See, objectives, first part, measures, second part. These are the 2 parts, right, of my first question. Now discuss land ceiling policy with respect to land holding, economic criteria, right? So there is 2 questions. This is my first question, right, of which this is 1A and this is 1B. I'll write 2.5, 2.5. This is my second question, land ceiling policy, how is been effective for this one. This is for this I'll write 5 marks. ಈ ರೀತಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ ಡಿವಿಷನ್ಸ್, ದೆನ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ದೀಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ಲಿ, ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಯು ಫ್ರಮ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಯುವರ್ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್. ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್, ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ರೈಟ್ ಮೋರ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ನೋ ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ದಿ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇಸ್. That is something which you should avoid, right? You should focus on question demand specific. Content ge yavattu marks segde iralla, right? So ultimately content is the winner and you should push on content. Clear? Yes. Chalo. Introduce the concept of artificial intelligence. So simple question to start with, introduce the concept of artificial. So instead of asking you define artificial intelligence, they have asked you introduce the concept. Right, so two simple paragraphs of what is artificial intelligence and how it is beneficial, right? Second, how does it help in clinical diagnosis? So now they have brought it from science perspective, helping in health. So how does it help in clinical diagnosis? Second part, do you perceive any threat to privacy of the individual with the use of artificial intelligence? Right, so three parts to the question. Introduce, clinical diagnosis, what is the help, and then the idea of threat to privacy. Right, these are the three aspects, specific, address, done. Right, so artificial intelligence has been in news continuously, use of it in all sectors, and this question is targeting for health sector. Sir, how do I prepare? When you take up artificial intelligence, from the basic idea of what is artificial intelligence, right, benefits of artificial intelligence for industry, benefits of artificial intelligence for education, for health, right, similarly for other sectors, concerns or issues related to artificial intelligence. ಇಷ್ಟು ನೀವು ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಡೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಈ ರೀತಿ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬೆಂಚ್ ಇಟ್, right? So that's how you have to look the ideas, right? So that's the work that you have to push through. Clear? Yes. I am not trying to just make you feel comfortable and give you a very rosy picture to say this is very easy, this is very easy. I am only trying to say that if you put your effort in a very simple basic manner, keep your basics clear, right? Nothing can become difficult. When we don't do the work that is necessary, everything seems to be difficult, right? That's the idea that I have to come. Clear? Yes. Right. See, what all can I do? Right. Your phones today have apps which gives you the idea of how much you have walked in every day. Correct? Right. What should be your calorie burning, that you can set targets based on which how much have you walked, how much have you met targets ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ. That also is an idea that's working upon. Right? These are things that comes into consideration. Everybody, most of them are using smartwatches today, and smartwatches give you analysis in terms. Now that's all data collection that's happening. This data, if misused, can also cause a privacy issue. That's the idea. These are all in regular day news. Okay? Discuss several ways in which microorganisms can help meeting current fuel shortage. Green hydrogen ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬಂತು ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಹೈಡ್ರೋಜನ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬಿನ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಇನ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್ ಶಾರ್ಟೇಜ್. ಸೊ ಬಯೋಫ್ಯೂಲ್, ಬಯೋಎಥನಾಲ್, ಬಯೋಗ್ಯಾಸ್, ರೈಟ್, ಆಲ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬರಿಬೇಕಷ್ಟೇ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಬಯೋಫ್ಯೂಲ್, ಬಯೋಎಥನಾಲ್, ಬಯೋಗ್ಯಾಸ್, ಗೋಬರ್ಧನ್ ವಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್, ಜೀವಧನ್ ವಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಟಚ್ ಅಪಾನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಬಂದಷ್ಟು ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ 3, 4, 5 ಎನ್ಶೋರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೇನು ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಇನ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್ ಶಾರ್ಟೇಜ್, right? So ethanol mixing and others that we are looking at, we are looking at the idea of fermentation itself, which is bio. Clear? Yes. Dam failures. Now coming this to your disaster management. Dam failures are always catastrophic, especially on downstream side, resulting in colossal loss of life and property. Right, last year Andhra Pradesh, to 2021-22, Andhra Pradesh had a major such issue. 20-25 people had died. Right, so that being the history around, question has given you a statement: the dam failures can be disastrous, they can kill a lot of people. Issues. Question, analyze the various causes of dam failures. 10 marks. Right, give 2 examples of large dam failures. Mention those examples. So analyze the reason, right, or causes, and second, 2 examples that they're looking for, right? So in terms of Uttarakhand, in terms of Himachal Pradesh, and the continuous questions that have been coming into, or news that has been coming into, on that basis you have to answer. Right? Dams, why are dams very important? The idea that they are holding a large amount of water. In that sense, downstream side, if that water at once, if a dam break happens, right, so dam failure is the breakup of the dam. And the amount of water run through that can happen, imagine what all, right, that idea. Right, so if you look at last 10, 20 years or 30, 40 years also, Maharashtra there have been continuous issues, Andhra Pradesh has seen issues, North India also has seen issues. Right, the Koyna Dam issue related, the Machu Dam, right, Annamaya Dam in Andhra Pradesh, these are all things that have been continuously in use. What can be the causes? Causes structural, that you have not built it very effectively, maintenance has not gone very effectively, too much of rainfall so that water has been continuously overflowing the dam which naturally weakens the structure. These are some causes that you have to highlight apart from some technical reasons that are part, right. So idea is that odde idru kuda, can I write at least 3 or 4? I can still write. That's the line that is pushed. Okay. So 2 examples that you have given, you are able to recall and give at least one helps to brilliant. Okay. Should I explain everything? No, this is just a 10 marks question. Mention, right, done. 8. What is oil pollution? Right? What is oil pollution? Spill of oil into, right, a water body leads to oil pollution. Okay. What are the impacts on marine ecosystem? Right? No. Oil spill and the pollution that results of it, what can be the impacts? Impacts are wide. Right? Why? If oil mixes up with water, right, oil with a different density, water with a different density does not mix. Now that creates, reduces insulation, reduces oxygen, automatically has a huge impact on the entire marine ecosystem, right? So fishes, your also the other marine ecosystem in terms of the whales. Whales do take in a lot of that oil. That creates trouble. So all that aspects, if you are able to specifically highlight, takes in consideration, right? Now there are some amphibious animals for which like your furry animals that come into picture, right, which are amphibious. With that also there have been issues. British Petroleum had a huge oil leak that happened in the Pacific, right, while it was transporting, and that had caused a huge trouble. From that perspective, this has come into consideration, but question has now linked India. What are the impacts Jyoteke next? In what ways is pollution particularly harmful for a country like India? Question is about oil pollution. Oil pollution, particularly, how can it be harmful for India? Right? India is a peninsular country, surrounded by water on all 3 sides, huge economic potential, and if oil spill happens, huge economic impact, right? Because India is the 2nd largest fish producer of the world, right? Again, inland impact that comes into consideration, the marine ecosystem that can get affected, which can have complete livelihood issues that come into consideration, that specific aspect. So dependency on marine ecosystem, right, security issues that can cause into, that way you have to address this question, right. So environmental pollution related linked to disaster management, right. Security. Winning hearts and minds in terrorism affected areas is an essential step in restoring the trust of population. This is the statement. Discuss measures adopted by the government in this respect as part of the conflict resolution in Jammu and Kashmir. Right. So, discuss measures adopted by the government in this respect of what? Winning hearts and minds. Right, as part of conflict resolution Jammu and Kashmir, right. So you will give a very basic introduction of Jammu and Kashmir, how it has a history of being affected by terrorism since independence and continuously, right, and how government has been continuously putting efforts in terms. On one side you are countering the non-state actors and terror, on the other side you are trying to win over, right. So democracy, specifically in terms of NGOs support there, health, education, and how have you been trying to bring out livelihood colleges, skilling that has happened, right? Roshni is a program specifically targeted to youth of that region, right? There is Himayat, that's a program specifically targeted to the youth of that region. All these are skill development programs. So with those skill development programs, how are you trying to gain trust? Also bring the surrender policy that has come into of how youth can be averted from going there, Kashmir specific policy that comes into consideration. Can I use some content that I have learned for Naxalism related policy also use here? Yes, you can, but not direct reference to Naxalism because question is directly talking of Kashmir. right? Jammu and Kashmir region. In that way, this question can be answered. Okay. So this is development versus extremism idea. That part of the question that comes in. Now see, a little out of track, but still. Use of unmanned aerial vehicles by our adversaries across the border to ferry arms, ammunitions, drugs, etc. has become a serious threat to internal security. Comment on measures that have been taken to tackle this threat. Right? Twice or thrice in the last 1 year, there have been continuous news of how drones had landed into regions of Jammu, Kashmir, Punjab, where they had carried huge amount of arms, and Punjab region specifically, they had carried drugs. So drones are now being used to carry arms and carry drugs, so they have been dropped in specific places. That's become a huge threat. So how do you counter? Right? So after this came in, government came up with a specific anti-drone policy. Also, they have come up with specific anti-drone mechanisms and also some anti-drone vehicles that have been initiated based on which. So that's the question that have been asked. Comment on measures being taken to tackle this threat. So initial introduction on this, then measures you have to list. So until unless you have prepared specifically, you know. But this has been in news last 1 year. 3 or 4 times has happened. Every time this has come, Hindu itself has listed of how, right, government has been procuring anti-drone vehicles and through that trying to work upon. Okay. So all these questions, all 10 markers that have come, are all come directly based on current affairs linked to the idea. Okay. 11. Most of the unemployment in India. Now look at this. We are coming back to economics and 15 marks questions. Right. So please understand how do you link your answer. Statement says most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature. There are different types of unemployment. Right. There is frictional unemployment, there is seasonal unemployment, there is structural unemployment, right, disguised unemployment, different types of unemployment. The statement says most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature. Examine the methodology adopted to compute unemployment in the country and suggest improvements. Now, ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ structural unemployment ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತು. So structural unemployment ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪೇಜ್ ಬರೆದು ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. Right? Question ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? Question is examine the methodology adopted to compute unemployment. This is the question. Suggest improvements with respect to that methodology. This is the question. So two parts of your question is one, methodology that you are adopting to compute or calculate unemployment. Second, how can you improve those methods? This is the question. Question is not about what is structural unemployment, why is structural unemployment too high in India. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ಇದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಡೋದೇ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಮಿಸ್ಲೀಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಏನು ಬರೀವಾದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬರೀರಿ ರೈಟ್ ಒನ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಗ್ರಾಫ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ to in terms of content 3 or 4 reasons, just mentioning the reasons without explaining, right? Why is structural employment high? What is structural employment? Mismatch between skills and availability of jobs, right? When a country goes through structural changes, naturally people's skill and the right job availability, there is a mismatch that creates unemployment. That unemployment is structural. Problem with structural unemployment is largely long term, right? Why? For people to raise their skill level will take time, and because of which it creates trouble, right? So that's the basic understanding. I need not write all this, just a definition or an understanding of structural unemployment. Why India has gone through another one, ಎರಡು ಮೂರು reason mention ಮಾಡಿದಿರಾ first one paragraph ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಗೀತು. Question has to come, examine the method adopted to compute unemployment from census to National Sample Survey Organization, periodic labor force survey, right, family health survey that comes into consideration, also your annual survey that comes in. All these surveys related from where you are measuring unemployment, right, methods that you are calculating. So ಈ survey ಬಗ್ಗೆ census ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ calculate ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, periodic labor force survey ಹೇಗೆ, so ಒಂದೊಂದರಲ್ಲೂ ಎರಡು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Then what are the improvements, right? Use of technology, right? Through technology, better mapping, right? So specific in terms of constant data collection. Why? Labor bureaus are spread across, employment exchanges are spread across. So state level data collection, local level data collection, which can be integrated at a national level. These ideas you have to suggest as improvements. Okay? So not a very easy question to directly write, but how will you get misled? ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬರೆದು ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬರೀತಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇವನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ರಿಟನ್ ಬ್ರಿಲಿಯಂಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್, ಬಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗೋದು 3, 4, 5. Right? That becomes a problem. And I'm telling this out of experience. Right? I came out thinking I have written wonderful answers, but then the teacher gave me only 2 marks, 3 marks. I said, why? He said, no, you question ಕೇಳಿರೋದಕ್ಕೂ ನೀವು ಬರ್ದಿರೋ 2 ಪೇಜಲ್ಲೂ ನಿಂಗೆ 2 ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ತೋರಿಸೋದು. Right? That's the realization. Okay? So please be clear. Distinguish between care economy and monetized economy. First part. Distinguish between care economy, monetized economy. What is care economy? Right? Something that does not get accounted, something for which will not be paid. Correct? Right? Household, caregiving work, right? Health related, education related, these works, care economy, doesn't get accounted. Monetized economy, formal sector, right? Which has to fixed salaries that are given into and the support that comes into consideration. Now, how can care economy be brought into monetized economy? How can you translate? Through women empowerment, right? So largely care economy is women oriented. If you are able to upskill these women, if you are able to register these women, right, and then build self-help groups, build areas where their skills can find economic use, right? So all those people who go work as house helps, ಅವ್ರದ್ದೇ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಫಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೌಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಸ್ಯಾಲರೀಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಆ ಫಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆಲ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾನಿಟೈಸ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ರೆಕಗ್ನೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನೀವು ಅವ್ರ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಸರ್ಟಿಫಿಕೇಟ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಆ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ ಬೇಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಸ್ಯಾಲರೀಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ದಟ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಲಿಂಕ್ ದಟ್. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ವಿಶ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಮೆಷರ್ಸ್. ದಟ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕಮ್ ಥ್ರೂ. ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್? ಎಸ್? ಓಕೆ, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ can all these things be taught in class? That's also an interesting question that you have to know. These are questions for which, based on the basic knowledge that I have derived in a classroom, I will have to make value additions of what I have studied and learned also. Right? So the message again is, please don't be completely dependent on some notes or classroom idea that ishtralle ella baratte. Right? The idea of UPSC exam is real time application. ನೀವು ಕಲಿತಾ ಇರೋದನ್ನ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ how do you apply? That's also something. Okay? Keep that in mind. Explain the changes in cropping patterns in India. Changes in cropping patterns in India. Context of changes in consumption patterns and marketing conditions. Right? 15 marks question. They are asking you to explain the changes in cropping patterns with respect to what? Changes in consumption patterns and marketing conditions. Right? Consumption patterns alli yav riti changes agive. There has been an increased preference on certain types of foods. So when there is an increased preference on certain types of food, automatically demand for those foods go up. Naturally people will tend to grow that more. Correct? Also marketing, right, which is finding more marketing tendency and which is finding more benefit on that line, more output on that line, that also. So in that perspective you have to answer. Protein based foods are increasing, right? So since protein based foods demand is increasing, naturally cropping patterns are tending to move towards that line more. Food parks and food processing industries have been increasing. In that sense, marketing of certain sets of foods have been increasing. In that line, cropping patterns in that perspective have been increasing. So with specific examples, you have to answer this idea. Okay? Right? So problem has been that because of MSP, right, it was more in terms of rice and wheat, rice and wheat, rice and wheat. Now that you have found more importance to protein based foods, the idea related to that way you have to improvise. Okay, we talk of dietary transitions, and dietary transitions have resulted to change in cropping patterns, the consumption patterns. Marketing, also related programs and schemes that has come. Clear? Yes. What are direct and indirect subsidies provided to farm sector in India? Direct question, right? Direct subsidies, indirect subsidies to farm sector in India. MSP, right? Direct benefits transfer, these are all direct subsidies. You list certain. Indirect subsidies that are coming into, you list them. So these are direct and indirect subsidies to farm sector. One question done. Second, issues raised by WTO in relation to agricultural subsidies, right? From basic MSP related to till recent food program, there have been issues raised. That way also there have been questions that you have to link it. Okay? So that's the line that you're taking into consideration. So first part, second part, 15 marks. So first part gives you 7 or 8, second part gives you the other 7 or 8. You have to link it. Right? Don't write stories. Paragraph, points. directly linked to the question. Okay, aga crispness of the answer, objectivity of the answer also will increase. Automatically the marks that you take will increase. Right? Develop these things. Either we will write only points or we will write only paragraphs. Right? So essay go, answer writing go, that's the idea that you have to create. Okay. Adoption of electric vehicles is rapidly growing worldwide. Statement: how do electric vehicles contribute to reducing carbon emissions? First question. What are the key benefits they offer compared to traditional combustion engines? Second question. So first question is, how do electric vehicles contribute to reducing carbon emissions? Right. So compared to your fossil fuel based vehicles, which is petrol diesel based vehicles, how are electric vehicles better? Right, pollution, exhaust, technology, right, overall combustion, and on that basis. So electric vehicles ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬಾರಿ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಸತಿ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕಮ್, ರೈಟ್, ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಾರ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಯೋರ್ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ ಇಗ್ನಿಷನ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಫ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್, ಬಟ್ ಒಂದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ ಅ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಯುವರ್ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ 10,000 kilometers, right, how much of fuel consumption here, how much of fuel consumption here, because there is a criticism alva, you electric vehicles antira, but electric vehicles ge electricity ellina generate ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, thermal power plants generate ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, so ಏನು ಪ್ರಯೋಜನ ಬಂತು? This question also comes. The same reason these are questions that are coming into consideration. ನೀವು ಬಳಸುವಂತ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ಅದರಿಂದ ಆಗುವಂತ ಎಕ್ಸಾಸ್ಟ್ಗೂ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಅದರಿಂದ ಆಗೋ ಎಕ್ಸಾಸ್ಟ್ಗೂ there is actually a larger difference. USA technology there is difference of 70 to 80%. European technology there is difference of 60 to 70%. China's technology is much lesser because their technology of electric vehicles is much on a lower side, 40 to 50%. Right? So in that line you have to talk of first. Key benefits they offered compared to traditional vehicles, similar line you have to link. Both ideas coming together. Okay? So this is a topic that has been continuously in news, lot of content is available, prepare. What is the main task? Now please understand, mains questions that have come are always an indicator to the prelims questions of next year. Right? So these are topics which can indicate the questions for next year prelims also. Okay? Main task of India's third monsoon mission or moon mission, direct Chandrayaan 3 based question. What was the main task? Are you trying to find life there? Are you trying to find water there? Are you trying to find what? What is the main mission of Chandrayaan 3? Which could not be achieved in the earlier mission. Direct question. Chandrayaan 3, what is the objective? Why are you going to moon? Right. Second, list the countries that have achieved this task. Just list. Right. USSR, USA, China, India. Right. Gottidre USSR pakka Luna. Right. Your USA pakka Apollo. And then China pakka Chang'e 3. Right. And India pakka Chandrayaan. Right, is to mention which are the missions, so you have to get. Next, introduce the system in the spacecraft launched. Right, first part, systems, just names. Right, Vikram lander, Pragyan rover, Ramba there is one. Right, there is one also called. There are two others. Right, I am forgetting the name. Is to just mention madi purpose. Then explain the role of virtual launch control center at Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, which contributed to the successful launch in Harikota. Sriharikota launch agiddu. A launch successful agodakke Vikram Sarabhai Space Launch Control Center iro tumba Kerala. Allinda ಏನು benefits ಸಿಕ್ತು? All this has been in news. So ಆ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಓದಿ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್. This is not core technology. They are asking you basic understanding. Right? So please understand, science and technology yavadu kuda they are not getting into the details, they are getting you the specifics. Okay? Clear? Comment on National Wetland Conservation Program initiated by Government of India. Right? Why is the question? Budget alli Amrut Dharohar scheme ittu, wetlands has been directed. So comment on National Wetland Conservation Program initiated by Government of India. Direct. What is National Wetland Conservation Program? What is the objective? What are the concerns? Second, name a few India's wetlands on international importance included in Ramsar sites. Some names which state they are, why are they important? Done. Right? From that basic idea. Recently, some in Karnataka's wetlands also were included. So last 6 months to 1 year, wetlands have been in news. Rangantittu was made part. Idella aitalva. So aa drishtige prashne. Okay? Intergovernmental panel on climate change has predicted global sea level rise about 1 meter by 2100. What would be the impact in India of that sea level rise? Other countries in Indian Ocean region. So direct question, sea level rise up to 1 meter increase ಆಗೋ ತರ ಇದೆ. India ಮೇಲೆ ಏನು ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, Indian Ocean region ಇರೋ other countries ಮೇಲೆ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಸಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ರೈಸ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಎರಡು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೋಸ್ಟಲ್ ಎರೋಷನ್, ರೈಟ್, ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್, ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್, ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್, ಈ ಮೂರು ಐಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಲಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಬ್ರಿಲಿಯಂಟ್. Second, again, Indian Ocean region allu kuda geopolitical impact, increased migration, right, can lead to issues, climate migrants, climate refugees that can cause into, right, specifically Seychelles, Maldives, Mauritius, and these regions come into, Bangladesh also for that matter coming into consideration, all this, Sri Lanka, you have to take in consideration. Indian Ocean region anta kelidaralla adike. Okay? ಸೊ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇವಾಗಿರುವಂತ ಕಾಮನ್ ನಾಲೆಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಬರೀತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವೈ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಜನರಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್. ಓಕೆ. 19. What are internal security challenges faced by India? So list of internal security challenges. Direct question. This is the first topic of your syllabus. Internal security challenges faced by India. Second question, give out the role of central intelligence and investigative agencies. So they have not only asked intelligence, investigative agencies also. So while you are writing intelligence agencies of IB, RAW, right, in terms of NTRO and others, you should also write of, right, NIA, right, ED, right, your idea of serious fraud investigation office, these aspects. Both agencies have to come to counter such threats. Okay. Because they are not asking only terrorist threats, internal security threats. Internal security threat can also be because of cyber security, can also be because of money laundering. Internal security threat can also be because of Naxalism. So, ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು counter ಮಾಡುವಂತ security agencies, investigation agencies ಯಾವುದು, in your intelligence agencies ಯಾವುದು. So that's the link that you have to come in. Okay. So direct link based answer. Last question, give out major sources of terror funding in India, efforts being made to curtail these sources. So first, major sources of terror funding, sources, efforts being made to curtail these sources. What are the efforts taken to reduce these sources? Perfect. Second, in light of this, also discuss aim and objective of No Money for Terror conference recently held at New Delhi, November 2022. So we had a conference, India hosted this conference, No Money for Terror. What was the aim of that conference? What was the objective of it? Current affairs based question, directly commented. Right. So the message is, the question paper this time, specifically GS paper 3, was very much in an attemptable range. As students who are now preparing for upcoming prelims and mains 1 year down the lane, what you have to take back is, if you are able to continuously track issues, that's why we have been repeatedly emphasizing, don't become dependent on certain materials, right? They are all good, they'll give you content, no problem, but identifying issues, building continuity of these issues is your responsibility, right? Don't outsource that responsibility, then UPSC also will outsource their responsibility, right? So if you are able to read newspaper every day, make a list of those topics. From that topics, if you are able to generate content, prepare in that line, right? Trust me, be it prelims, be it mains, nobody can stop your success, right? So without your effort, without your smart work, nothing is possible. But if you are able to do that, put the line in the direct, nothing can stop you, right? So trust yourself, trust your instinct, work in that particular line. You may miss out on one question or two questions. You may feel at this point of time others are doing it very easily. I am putting a lot of effort on ansbodo. But exam bandaga, you will be the person who will be more happy, you will be the person who will be more satisfied than the others. So think about yourself, think about your effort, focus. Right? These are all attemptable range questions only, and that's something you should take it for your benefit. Okay? Perfect. Thank you so much. Right. So we'll start with GS paper 2 now. Nikhil sir is here. He should be taking it forward. Okay. Any question, any doubt, please ask. Okay. Thank you.